let's look at what it means to have relative references in a formula versus absolute references versus mixed references. So if I write my formula here using the point and click method, I can now, whoops, one too many plus signs, I'm going to take that out. I can now copy this formula and I can paste it, and you'll see I got a different result. That's because this formula here adds up the 3 cells to the left. And as I move that formula to somewhere else, it does the same thing. It adds up the 3 cells to the left. Basically what that means is relative to where a formula is placed, it will continue to reference the same cells relative to its location. So if I write a formula here, that one plus that one plus that one, enter, and then I copy this formula, Control C, Control V, Control V, even here, Control V, right? And if I look to see what that formula is doing, relative to its location, it's adding up the 3 cells right above it. Relative to its location, it adds up the 3 cells right above it. I have a little warning there that's telling me, hey, this formula is referring to an empty cell. That's this cell there. As a matter of fact, if I just put a number in there, so I'll copy this formula down and put that there, and now this formula was that one to the left, and those are those 3 to the left. But my warning went away because it's no longer referencing an empty cell. So I could copy this formula anywhere, there, 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 there. And no matter where I put it, it's adding up the 3 cells to the left. You can also, instead of copying and pasting formulas, so let me just clear those out, clear these out. I could autofill formulas. Just grab that little plus sign at the bottom right corner of the active cell, drag it down, and it autofilled all of the formulas. Equals that, plus that, plus that, and then autofill. And it autofilled in all of the formulas. So those are relative references. What are absolute references? Well, what if I wanted to create a formula that would multiply this value times the tax rate and put the result right there? So let's go ahead and do that. Equals that times that, enter. And now I copy and paste this formula over using the autofill handle, and it doesn't work. Well, let's take a look at why. Right there, it's taking the cell right above it and multiplying it by a cell that's down this far and over that far. And if I move it, this reference right here just keeps shifting also. If I go into formula auditing, formulas, show formulas, this becomes real clear as I just kind of arrow between the different formulas, what it's doing. So I need some way to keep that reference down there to C13, the tax rate. I need to keep that constant as I copy this formula over to the right. And the way I do that is I come in here and I put a $sign in front of the column reference, and I put a $sign in front of the row reference. And that's why I wrote absolute references with the $sign right here. And when I hit enter, nothing really changed. But if I copy this over, using the autofill handle to do that, you can see bop, bop, bop. The reference to C13 stayed the same. So no matter where I move this formula, copy, Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V. This formula takes whatever cell's right above it, right? G15 or G10 or H10, whatever cell is right above it, takes whatever cell's right above it, and it always will multiply it by cell C13. So that's how that formula works. Well, finally, we have mixed references. What are mixed references? We saw that relative references look like that. We've seen that an absolute reference will have both the column and the row being held absolute. So as we move the formula around, the V is not changing, nor is the 8 changing. The column or the row is not changing. A mixed reference would mean that we're going to have an entry where maybe the column is held constant, but we want the row to shift. Or maybe the column shifts, but the row is held constant. And this is really useful when you create some sort of a grid like this, where I have one number on the left and I want it to interact with another number and then produce the result out here. So this is a x to the power of n. And if I wanted to write this, I would say that this is equal to x to the power of that. And then to write this, to get it to fill in over this grid, what am I going to want to have happen? Well, this column here, I always need to be referencing that column. So for the blue, I always want the column to stay in. I never want that to change. And for The red for the power part, I always want the row to stay constant. I never want the row to change. So if I put in the $ next to what I want to stay constant, I've now created a mixed reference. I could hit enter, and as I copy this, Control C, or I guess I'll use copy there, and then Control V, and then pull it over to the right, and then do the same with this one. It fills in my entire deal with the correct numbers. So you can see here's 1 to the power 1, 2 to the power of 2, 2 to the power, 3 to the power of 2, so 3 times 3 is 9, right? And so on and so forth. So it's automatically created this entire grid with my mixed reference. All right, so that's a little bit about getting your math on and writing formulas and mouse pointer awareness and using cell references and the point and click method and the order of operations and the importance of that, and relative references versus absolute references versus mixed references. There's still a lot of really great stuff coming. So absolutely, definitely, whatever you do, come back and watch the next videos. You want to stay tuned because there's some amazing stuff coming.